I am falling in love all over again with ABBA's Chiquitita. When we were talking about this song recently in the context of a new article, I was so in the mood to play the song. I always loved it, but this was one of those times when you feel as if you are listening to it for the first time again. All my feelings exploded into astronomical heights. Enthusiasm, joy, and optimism erupted. So I wondered, just how do they do this? What's the secret and story? Let's explore Chiquitita.
Chiquitita, you and I know.
Hey. So, Chiquitita is a prime example in ABBA's catalogue of songs for a variety of reasons. It perfectly shows how hard and multifaceted they worked until they achieved the final version of a song. We'll go through this evolution of Chiquitita in this video and we'll also dissect the song itself. But Chiquitita is also a prime example of the importance of an ABBA song and how diverse this importance can be. Chiquitita has never made a penny for ABBA themselves. All the royalties for this song go to the help of children and young girls in need. In 1979, the UNESCO proclaimed the year as International Year of the Child, and ABBA decided to donate all royalties from this song to UNICEF. A new article from last week gives new perspectives and stories of how the song currently helps children, specifically in Guatemala. So Chiquitita is a crucial song for many people in many different ways. Listen to Frida retelling the story of Chiquitita and how it became ABBA's song for UNICEF.
The story about Chiquitita, maybe you know, because we were invited to the UNICEF Gala in New York, and then we didn't have so many songs to choose in between because Benny and Björn, I think they wrote 4 or 5 songs, something like that. And we thought that Chiquitita would be the most, would fit in best in that program.
This choice was very unusual for 2 reasons. ABBA was one of the few artists who presented a new song. And even more so, the other songs in the concert were generally more up-tempo disco and pop songs. So ABBA and Chiquitita stuck out quite a bit. This is basically the reverse situation from 5 years before when they performed at the Eurovision Song Contest. That show was generally filled with Schlager and ballad type of songs, yet ABBA chose the up-tempo rocking Waterloo. And now they chose a folk song with styles of Schlager for the UNICEF concert. This is even more remarkable when we take a look into the recording process, because this song didn't start out like that at all. It actually began as a symphonic rock number, probably in the style of songs like Intermezzo No. 1 or Scaramouche, the instrumental outtake that we hear at the start of ABBA Undeleted. At the end of this rocking first take of Chiquitita, Benny can be heard saying something like, "You can't do this song in that kind of style." So they retried and reworked their new tune over and over again, and it would take almost the entire month of December to get it right. On one of these early versions, the lead vocals are divided. Agneta sings the first 2 verses, Frida the next 2. This version was called In the Arms of Rosalita. It also shows that they didn't have Benny's instrumental ending yet. Instead, all 4 ABBA members simply hum a unique melody to close the song. On one of the final versions, the name Chiquitita was introduced, which is Spanish for little girl. But the title was Chiquitita Angelina, so that little girl had a name here. In the end, it was neither Rosalita nor Angelina. In 1986, Björn talked about these many versions and the evolution of Chiquitita.
Chiquitita, I remember that we had quite a problem with the backing track, if I remember it all right. I think we recorded that 2 or 3 times. And also it had, before Chiquitita, it had numerous titles.
A few years later, in 1994, they wanted to include a medley of those versions on the box set Thank You for the Music. But unfortunately, this was vetoed by Björn and Benny. This veto must have come at the last second, since we can still read a reference for the medley in the booklet. 5 years later, we got to hear at least a few seconds of one of the versions in an ABBA documentary.
Happy as you can be in the arms of Rosalita. But a man will love
In the end, Chiquitita turned out so well that they quickly decided to use it for their new single and for that important UNICEF concert, and I think Chiquitita was a terrific choice for the New York Music for UNICEF concert. There we have a song that is musically very thoughtful, almost wistful, and that even lyrically deals with themes connected to the concert, addressing a little child and giving her hope. In fact, this makes it one of the few songs in the concert that can be thematically linked to the intention and good cause. So let's take a look at the song itself and how effective it must have been when it was premiered in New York City. Chiquitita starts very traditional, with just an acoustic guitar followed by piano. We can picture our very own Björn and Benny on these instruments. It's a very classic introduction. And Chiquitita stays in that setting. This traditional folk and Schlager orientation is not unusual for ABBA, and especially not unusual for ABBA during this period. A few months later, they wrote and recorded I Have a Dream, and these are the songs that probably show the most how their next album Voulez-Vous is not typically dominated by disco songs. We can also compare its feelings with ABBA's very own Fernando, the Latin American influence. It couldn't be more fitting that Chiquitita was the first ABBA song to also be recorded and released in a Spanish language version. This became a huge success and led to a complete album of ABBA songs in Spanish that Agneta and Frida recorded in 1980. Björn compared the vibe of Chiquitita with El Condor Pasa, which was made famous by Simon and Garfunkel and which is based on Peruvian folk music. And this is one of the ingredients, I think, which gives Chiquitita that magic, those wistful verses in combination with a powerful, more upbeat chorus. It's a ballad and goes into up-tempo festivity in the chorus. These contrasts are even more remarkable when we consider the fact that musically, verse and chorus have the same melody.
Chiquitita is a nice little tune when you make a virtue out of necessity. It's the same chorus as verse.
Okay.
But you can't really tell.
No.
So even though the melody is the same, the arrangement and build-up is so ingenious that the verse and chorus feel like a perfect complement. And no one can feel that music better than Björn. He really captures these contrasting feelings in his lyrics. They go from despair to hope. Verses tell us something is wrong. There is sorrow and no hope. I hate to see you like this. I can see that you're oh so sad, so quiet. When the second verse is slightly built up with accompanying drums, the lyrics also go into a more optimistic direction. I'm a shoulder you can cry on. You were always sure of yourself. Here's the problem. I see you have broken a feather. And here's the solution. We can patch it up together. And then the upbeat, joyful chorus kicks in, and we celebrate hope and life. The music bursts into positivity, and the lyrics follow. I always find it very revelatory to read lyrics, especially as a non-English native. So listen to these words. You and I know how the heartache come and they go. The scars they're leaving. You'll be dancing once again, and the pain will end. You will have no time for grieving. The sun is still in the sky. And the chorus ends with these magnificent words. Let me hear you sing once more, like you did before. And then giving even more optimism. Try once more, like you did before. Sing a new song. The words and music are superb. The combination is marvelous. But who else can really give these songs their ultimate magic than Agneta and Frida? Their voices in variation and their voices in combination. Agneta's lead vocals deliver the ultimate melancholia. Deeply hidden, she sings some extremely high lines, as if she's crying for help. Frida's lower voice gives it a warm contrast and makes sure that the overall sadness is given hope. These harmonies are so complex, and when we listen to the isolated vocals, they reveal those layers and contrasts of deep voices and high vocals.
Chiquitita, you and I cry. For the sun is still in the sky and shining above you. The sun is shining. Let me hear you sing once more, like you did before. Sing a new song, Chiquitita. I was baby since I know the way you used to do before.
As if those final choruses of the song weren't enough feelings of positivity already, they add something else that makes us go wild from all the optimism. Benny's up-tempo post-instrumental is so unexpected, so cheerful and so different. It's almost as if the music is capturing those final words of the lyrics, as if that little child is finally singing that new song. Try once more like you did before. And she did. The fact that this piece of music was only created in one of the final versions during the recording sessions makes me wonder if Benny was actually in turn inspired by Björn's lyrics. I'm almost positive about that. Benny's instrumental postlude symbolizes this thrill of happiness. If you go to London these days and have the chance to be in ABBA's very own arena to experience Voyage, this song is part of the show, and it has the unforgettable backdrop of a big sun which is more and more obscured by the moon. So in the end we have a total solar eclipse. How fitting is that? What else gave us more hope and joy than seeing those cosmic images last year, the rising or setting sun that visualized the return of ABBA, and which adorned the artwork of their brand new album. I experienced the show twice, and people go crazy during Voyage. But Chiquitita is one of my personal highlights from the show. There is no holding back. The audience doesn't hide away. They burst into one big unity of joy, an uplifting feeling of togetherness. So when we now go back in time and place to January 1979 and imagine being in New York City for that important UNICEF concert introducing the Year of the Child, this song must have been so effective and touching. A brand new song, a unique style, and lyrics that went hand in hand with the show itself. So now I want to know from you, how were you introduced to Chiquitita? When and where did you hear it for the first time? Maybe on the radio, or you bought the single. You might have seen it on TV for the first time, or maybe weren't even born back then, like myself. What are your memories? How do you like this song? Let me know in the comments below. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Alright, until then, hey då!